hi I guess. Most of American Dad is great, but there are a fair amount of average episodes in the latest few seasons. But among all of this great and a bit of average, there are a few episodes that I dislike. These are those episodes.
Oh, is this for me? Nom nom nom, yuck 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 yuck, isn't this fun?
I think this episode kind of works on some level. It does nail the play aspect, but I feel as if it gets to the point of being more play than American Dad. Even though I love Patrick Stewart, I dislike live action stuff in animated shows. The only show I haven't disliked live action stuff in is Courage the Cowardly Dog, because its aim is to be creepy. I get where they were coming from with the live action stuff, but there isn't much an animated show can do to make me like it. There are two things I applaud this episode for. It tried something very unique, and it did have some subtle jokes I liked, such as characters being seen getting prepared for their next scene, which does really help add to that play vibe. I'm not a fan of plays just as a whole. Some are better than others, obviously, but the farm art I'm just not a big fan of.
Ew, that splashed me!
Dude, that's 8 months of good luck.
Could you move down a little bit?
Oh, I'm the weirdo. You haven't peed a drop the whole time I've been watching.
This is a weird situation. Number 3 went away from the typical American Dad formula. Number 1 kind of goes away from the typical American Dad formula. This one doesn't really go away from that formula, it just feels like a normal episode, but just bad? Now before I dig into the episode, I just want to say that the episode doesn't get bad until after the football game. That's the first third of the episode that I thought was pretty good, the Hurt Locker being a standout moment.
Really? I mean, what the f*** are we doing here?
Plus, the simple acknowledgement that Lewis and Bullock hang out in some way is something I appreciate, as they are my two favourite supporting characters. The episode has Steve not understanding the appeal behind brutal sports, only to get harassed about it throughout. That in of itself I am not against, the problem comes with the execution, particularly the ending, which... awful. Francine basically bans Steve from the house, his friends get a crappy explanation as to why they actually like Johnny Concussion, and when Steve is being hunted by the town, Stan pretty much goes to murder his son. That last joke would work in Family Guy with like Peter and Chris or Meg, but the jokes in American Dad don't usually make its characters go off of the rails just to attempt one joke. I thought Steve on the radio show was pretty funny for the most part, as it was mostly characters we didn't know hating him.
Randy, what do you think of Steve Smith?
Hate him. Want to murder him.
My problem with him being harassed is that it's by his family and friends, and even if it may seem like it's in character for them, it is pushed to the point of being too extreme for their characters. Of course, those are mostly just character flaws, but as you may remember, I just mentioned, the ending is awful. Steve discovers he was being an arsehole by not enjoying brutal sports, which could work, but with the town revolting against him earlier, it makes it an unpleasant ending seeing him join that group of fans. I'm sure that he isn't going to harass people the same way he was harassed, just as sure as I am that most terrible sports fans are the outspoken minority, like any terrible portion of a fan group. So from more of a traditional structural sense, the town should have been the ones learning. But I don't care about that. It would have been better than what we got, but the ending could have just been Steve not changing his view and people forgetting he hates sports. Anticlimactic for sure, but it would have been better than what we got. The other problem with the ending is that it comes out of nowhere. Sure, Steve sees what athletes can do, but that shouldn't change his view on a sport because it's kind of similar in terms of entertainment. It's just a dumb ending full of bad characterization. There is technically a B-plot, but it almost feels non-existent. I feel like it should have just been Haley driving around Roger's personas for the whole thing. We got a bit of that, but not enough. Not a bad B-plot, but certainly forgettable, and one that felt unfinished. I feel like this episode is widely disputed among fans for 3 main reasons. Reason number 1, the live-action CeeLo Green stuff. I don't hate it, but yep, never liked live-action mixed in with animated shows. Reason number 2, Stan and the other characters die. I don't like that or dislike that, but it is definitely odd, because up until the last act it seems like a regular episode, but then bam, Marguerite, Lewis, Francine and Stan die, and it's not canon. Reason number 3, and this is the biggest reason for the mixed reception, it's a musical. People tend to either love or hate musical episodes of shows. I'm biased towards loving them. As long as the writing and singing is solid, I tend to enjoy them, but a lot of people really despise musical episodes. Is this episode dark? Yes. Does this episode have Roger become creepily obsessed with Haley? Yes. Does Roger skin Jeff? Yes. This episode does Roger do a flip? No, almost definitely not.
Oh my god, I did the flip! You didn't see me, but I did it!
This episode, in my opinion, is amazing. Not every episode needs a reason to exist and or a moral to teach. The main plot with Roger is classic Roger to me. He's approaching his worst, which to me means close to his best. The stuff with Stan is also pretty good. I don't mind things getting dark as long as I think it fits the show and the characters, and I think this does. Boring episode. It's simply really boring. Mama and Baba are occasionally funny though.
You see, every villain is the hero of his own apple cinnamon monkey toaster.
Whoa! No hands!
The play episode bored me, but this episode, it had me hoping it would just end. I mean, I know I could just turn the episode off if I dislike it, but when I've seen every episode up to that point, I want to see every future episode, unless the series as a whole just becomes consistent, pure awfulness. This episode has live action segments, which are by far my least favourite part of this episode. Before I talk about what I hate, let's talk about what I like. Even though they pushed Stan so far he felt out of character, Wendy Shell freaking killed it as Francine in her breakdown. Also, Stan got this line.
You didn't have to dry hump our mailbox.
Yeah, you go out and get your mail and tell me if it's dry.
I found that pretty funny. Now, I smiled a little at the beginning of the Fung-Wah water joke, but it went on for far too long. That's about it for what I like from this episode. I'm actually going to cover the B-plot first this time, because that was the bigger disappointment for me. Roger has to clean out his closet because he has too many costumes. This has potential to be comedic gold. Roger explaining the persona's backstories and justifying getting rid of certain characters could be one of the best B-plots in all of American Dad. It's ruined. They shove an animated version of Fung in there. What's most sad about them licking Fung-Wah's boots is that American Dad recently did the joke of a character we haven't met that the Smiths worship, but the recent episode did it a lot better. American Dad had the Colonel in a very recent episode. That made the love of a character we haven't met very funny.
And that leaves Steve with the Colonel.
Oh, yeah! Steve is gonna live! I'm going with the Colonel. Gonna be safe with the Colonel.
Gonna be alone with the Colonel.
Did you say something, Colonel? I didn't quite catch that, Colonel.
I know that joke was different in a few ways, but that sort of joke working is my point. It can work. I know a lot of people really hated the Stan and Francine stuff, and yeah, they went too far with Stan's character. I wasn't offended, I'm just saying that it seemed like they went too far for Stan as a character. This I could kind of watch, but wait! The ending connects with Fung, ruining what little story they had.
Stan and the Francine leave insane asylum and fix all their problems at Fung-Wah Resort in Bali!
Look, I get that the joke is that the show has someone else in charge and so it's ruined and shoved full of product placements. But the episode acknowledging that it's awful doesn't change the fact that I still find the episode awful. It could, like all episode concepts, work if the product placement and all of the changes to the show were executed well. But this just isn't good. I've only seen this episode twice. The first time was when it first aired, and I hated it. The second time was to make sure it was the right decision putting this at the top of my list. It was. Like I say at the end of all of these videos, I'm yet to become angry because of a cartoon episode I dislike. I don't hate the people that made these episodes, but I may hate or dislike an episode they worked on. Give me your opinion on the worst American Dad episodes in the comment section down below. Bye, I guess.